care when I hear my groove. Well, my music's rolling. I'm moving to that kick and swing, and I put Zeppelin on.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Behind the Cork. Boy, it's been a long time. I know, I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you somehow. If you mention how long it's been since I've recorded one in person, then I'll give you a hand job, whatever you need. So I apologize. So, pardon me for a couple of things. One, I know this is very, very late. I know we've been kind of on a hiatus, but doubt not my love for all of you. I hope you're all doing very well and all of that good stuff. Also, I'm fighting a nasty little cold, so if my voice is a little more resonating than usual, that's not my normal voice. I'm usually not this sexy. I'm very sexy. I'm just not sexy now. I don't know. Maybe I'm never sexy. I'm getting a bald spot. That's ugly. Maybe some people find that sexy. I don't. Fuck. Okay. So I'm sorry for the bald spot and I'm sorry for the cold. The reason I'm recording this is because I wanted to make sure that one, I touched base with you guys somehow, but two, I was inspired by Luke Allen's Live from the 405 podcast. Go check it out. I was inspired by that because honestly, it's just a good way to mark time, and you know, this is the end of a decade. God, crazy, 10 years. You wouldn't think 10 years ages a motherfucker quite like it does, but holy shit. Like, I was even just looking at a picture of Dave Attell in 2009, and it doesn't even look like the same Dave Attell. It's crazy. But anyways, I want to do this. I know this is hack and everybody else is doing it, but you know, maybe I'm the only one that'll listen to this, and that's fine. That's totally fine. So, if you are a constant listener, then I will say this. There's probably not going to be a lot of laughs in this episode. There's probably going to be a lot of deep, introspective shit. And that's fine, too. You know, that's kind of who I am. I'm funny when I'm on stage, and when I'm off, I'm me. So, you get different versions of me. So, there you go. Ooh, that's an immunity boost. It's like spinach. Okay. So, first things I'll do the movies. This will be probably a shorter episode too. So, number three comes in. God, this is gonna be like I'm copying Luke Allen, but it's funny because it's one of the reasons why I'm such good friends with Luke is a lot of his opinions I totally agree with, and there's still many I don't. But his movie list really hit home for me, pretty soundly actually. Number 3, it was The Warrior. In terms of movies, Nick Nolte. I don't know how you don't give that guy an Oscar for playing the dad. Obviously, I'm talking about that hotel scene where he's listening to Moby Dick, and just a powerhouse fucking performance, man. It's great acting. Like I didn't understand why people criticized Meryl Streep. One of the most notable people to criticize her was Katharine Hepburn. This is the gay era coming out. Katharine Hepburn hated Meryl Streep. She hated Meryl Streep. She preferred Glenn Close, even though she said her feet were too big. She did say that. She said watching Meryl Streep act was like tick-tock. It was like watching a clock. And I think if you were going to criticize Meryl Streep, it would be that sometimes it's formulaic. I still think she's a fucking knockout actress. Like, if you want to see something good with Meryl Streep, watch Sophie's Choice, because she's doing some crazy shit with some dialects. I think she's doing like a Polish dialect, but there's like a hint of German in it. They were saying it's fucking nuts. But I think the criticism she gets is, you know, justified that sometimes it can be a little formulaic. But in the same breath, too, like, I've heard people criticize Pacino, De Niro, Streep for being in some real fucking turds. But you gotta understand something, too. They're actors want to work. They really fucking do. And honestly, how many good projects are out there? There's not an abundance. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but I will never ever shit on somebody for wanting to act or wanting to work. That's also why, like, Streep and Pacino, why they go back to the stage all the time, is because there you can find fucking amazing, powerful scripts, but it's not always going to happen in movies. Good movies, I was talking with Luke about this, good movies are fucking hard to make. You know, even Luke, when he does shorts, he spends a shit ton of his own money, and, you know, he writes the script as best he can, and it's not going to always turn out funny. But what are you supposed to do? Fucking fault the guy for wanting to create a piece? No, that's the plight of being creative. Oh, I'm an artist. Fucking idiot. But seriously, I don't give a fuck. You know, we try to create, and I think that it's not my job to criticize a lot of shit. Yeah. Just, it either touches you or it doesn't. I'll let other people criticize that shit. Holy fuck, did we get off on a tangent here. Anyways, The Warrior. God damn, that was solid acting. Like, one of the most inspired performances I've ever seen. It's like one of my acting teachers used to say Harrison Ford was a really good actor because, yeah, you buy him in every single moment. And with Nick Nolte, I think it's the same. It's exactly the same thing. If you get a chance, just watch the dynamic of that family. And the nice little memory I have of it was, I remember my little cousin, who's much bigger than me now, he could probably kick the shit out of me. We went to go see The Warrior. And it was back when I was living in Colorado. And we ran to the theater, and guys, we were like 10 minutes fucking late. And they were like, yeah, nobody signed up nobody bought tickets to that movie, so we're just not going to show it. And I said, look, please, it's the last night you guys are showing it. Can you please? And they were like, no, we're not going to screen it for just 2 people. And I told them, I said, listen, I will not only pay for the tickets, obviously, but I promise you I will spend no less than $30 at the concessions, okay? And they kind of looked at me and I was like, I know you guys make your money on concessions, and I'm telling you, I'm just going to give you $30, and I'm going to get some popcorn and a couple sodas. That's all I want. And they fucking said, you know what? Okay, that's fine. And we had the upstairs screen to ourselves. If Aaron, you listen to this, you remember it. I talked us into it. But I mean, it was probably one of the closest moments I've had with my cousin, just because, you know, we saw a lot of his dad, I think, in that film, and how much love there was, and it was just a very, very powerful film. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But number 3 is The Warrior. Number 2 is Whiplash. Holy fuck, man. This movie just knocks you out. I got flashbacks from what it was like at the conservatory. And it's funny because it just made me think how happy I was that I got to study in New York, and then I got to live there for 4 years. But the one thing that it really taught me was it gave me a discipline. You know, whenever I'll shoot a sketch or whenever I'll do something, one thing I don't fuck around with is acting. And it's not bragging. It's more like I'm more militant about it. And I had to learn that from the conservatory, because they were such fucking hard asses about it. We had DLP, which was Dead Letter Perfect. We would have to memorize shit every single fucking day. You would have to read a play every single day, or they told you to. I did pretty great with play reading, to be honest. I never really gave a shit much about high school, but for some reason, when I went to the conservatory, I really thrived there. So go figure that. So it was very, very much a discipline. And I remember, we had to take dance classes that were very, very precise, and fencing and Shakespeare. That was where I really found my love for Shakespeare. That will come more into play later too. So Whiplash just really gave me the the Vietnam flashback of what intense study was, and it has a beautiful message behind it. A kind of a puzzling message too is, can one work too hard at a craft until it consumes you? And that really depends. All my comedian friends look at what we have to sacrifice, and we do. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. There's things that we can't go home for because honestly, we have shows. I've come to that realization, and that's happened to me before. I've missed weddings and funerals because I've had shit that I had to do. So really, what are you sacrificing? And what's it worth to you? What do you really want? And that movie really cuts to the heart of that question. So, all right, drum roll number 1. Definitely Call Me by Your Name. The movie and the book too. I won't be one of those assholes that said, "Oh, I read the book first, man," and then the movie was. I saw the movie and I absolutely loved it, so much so that I wanted to read the book. And when I read the book, it was a knockout. So, so many things I could say about that. Call Me by Your Name. If you haven't seen it, it's such a gay movie. I love it. It's about a kid that falls in love with his professor. Well, his father's assistant professor. They go to Italy, of all places, and they spend a couple weeks together. Just the longing, and this is what's really crazy about that film, and even more crazy about the book. It really captures the longing, and not necessarily the shame, but like what it is to have to hide your sexuality. And I never really talk about this, but it does suck if you like somebody and you just can't be outright and say it. It's such a strange thing having to come out to people. It is, because it's such a big part of who I am. But it's not all of me, of course. But like even coworkers, there's been times where I worry, oh God, are they gonna think I'm hitting on them if I let them know that I'm gay? And it really captured for me what it's like to have that kind of repressed love, and honestly, when you're alone with somebody that you really care about, what it's like to feel loved and accepted. It's a strange thing. So that film and that story, I should say, it just really captured all of that, because I remember the first real boyfriend I had. I wasn't out to anybody, and this poor motherfucker, his name is Thomas, of course. I always talk about him. I couldn't come out to people at the very beginning when we were together. Like, my mother knew him as my roommate, which I'm sure she knew. How the fuck do you not? But anyways, there was a time where certain family would visit, and I had to pretend a guy that I absolutely was in love with was my fucking roommate. I had to pretend that. it was horrible. Oh, fuck. So I think it was a prison that I put myself in. I'm not one of these guys that can say, oh, I had it so hard, because I really didn't. Honestly, a lot of people didn't know I was gay, and I could hide it pretty fucking well. But I think that was what was so hard, was having to tell people, hey, I hope you don't have a problem with this, but I am gay. And, I can't say that it was all sunshine and roses. It was mostly. I didn't have a lot of issues with it, but, there's a couple people that don't talk to me, and that's fine, to each their own. But anyways, Call Me By Your Name really captured just that spirit of repressed love and what it is to fully be embraced by somebody. So those are my movies. All right, let's go to my moments. Number 5. I got 5 of these. How do you like that? Number 5 was, I wrote down here because I know I'll go off the rails without this, giving up on graduate school. So I moved to LA because this was my plan when I lived in New York. I fully intended to move back to New York, by the way. Staying in LA was never my idea. Not when I moved here. When I first came here, it might have been either 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2011. This is what I wanted to do. I said, okay, I will get into a master's degree program. I'll get my MFA in acting, and then I'll teach acting while I'm acting. Comedy was never in the running. I always loved it, and I knew surprisingly a large amount about stand-up, even more so than stand-ups now. But whatever, I'm bragging. Piece of shit. I auditioned for graduate school, and guess what? I didn't fucking get in. I wasn't good enough. I had the letters from the right people. I had friends at Yale. I had friends at Juilliard. And the thing of it was, didn't get in. And sometimes that fucking happens. You know what's funny? I remember I was on the train to New Haven. I flew out to New York, and I was on the train going to New Haven and auditioned, didn't get in. And then what's funny is if you get a call back, you kind of stick around there. But if you don't, you take the same train from New Haven back to New York. And so all the people on that train are the kids that didn't get into Yale. And I've talked about this before, but it's funny because you just sit there, and if you're quiet enough, you can hear other little actors whimpering. just tearing up and crying that they didn't get into Yale. Which, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, if you've seen the fucking numbers on who they let in, that you can't be that fucking surprised. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's why I didn't get in. I didn't want it bad enough, but oh fuck. The whimpering, it was like the fucking train of misfit toys going to the island of misfit toys. I don't know. So giving up on grad school, because I here's the thing. I didn't just audition for Yale. I did the I don't even know what you call them anymore. It's where they have a bunch of schools looking for MFA students, and I auditioned in front of a shit ton of people. I auditioned in front of people that I actually knew, like schools, and I wasn't good enough to get in, and it was funny because I had a meeting with one of the teachers that was really good friends with me at the time. I don't fucking talk to this guy anymore. He's a voice teacher, and he works in the Shakespeare Theater in Oregon or whatever the fuck it is, Shakespeare Stratford, whatever. Yeah, and all he wanted to talk about was how young his fucking boyfriend was, which, what do I give a fuck? Fuck you and your boyfriend, and for not letting me in your school. Anyways, yeah, I didn't get in. And when you don't get in, like, your plan doesn't go exactly to plan, you've got to sit there and you got to ask yourself, well, what the fuck am I doing here? And slowly but surely, that's how stand-up came back into my life. It wasn't the first time that I had ever did stand-up, but I had said, well, I have this other thing that I love. Why not try that? And yeah, I've been in love with it ever since. You still with me? All right, I'll try to move these along. Number 4. I should put a little. Okay, maybe this will save my ass. I have a job that drug tests. So, by that notion, you don't know if these stories are true or not. They're true, or maybe they're not. If you're looking to fire me, they're not true. So, if you're a constant listener, they're very true. I'm not lying here. But anyways, why I say that is because number 4 is taking LSD on my 30th birthday. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. All I will say is this. I knew a guy named Eric who took LSD on his 30th birthday, and he had a blast. This was one of the greatest times he's ever had. And he did it with some of his best friends, who shall remain nameless. But I haven't laughed that hard for that long, and so long. I mean, my fucking ribs hurt. And it's a weird thing when you're in Vegas. Vegas, by the way, is the perfect place to do LSD, because you can be up all fucking night, and nobody gives a shit. I mean, that was this guy in the story is named Eric. That was his little fear and loathing in Las Vegas. And it felt like that. It was this wonderfully bizarre, hilarious time. And I remember the guy Eric was talking about being on the plane. And, fuck it, I'll drop it. I remember just thinking to myself, wow, I love that I have friends that I could do this with. And I still have such a memory of all the crazy shit we saw that night. Nothing melted. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just a time where we could be kids again for one fucking night on LSD and cocaine. It was a beautiful thing, oddly enough. I've only done it once. Or maybe I haven't. And it was spectacular. Honestly. One of the great moments of my life, believe it or not. So, yeah, that was number 4 in this decade. Number 3, the journey to Mark Rylance. Okay, so I told you guys how much I loved Shakespeare. Here's the thing. Shakespeare is as fucking pretentious, probably more now than it ever has been. People hear Ian McKellen, or they hear a big British actor with that booming voice, blow winds and crack your cheeks. Just a bunch of fucking sing-songy bullshit. And that's not Shakespeare. It's fucking awful. It's self-aggrandizing bullshit acting. Excuse me. You want to know good Shakespeare? If you fucking understand it. And there's a group of people in the world that believe, if you can't bring Shakespeare down to your level, you have to kind of ascend to listen to the great works of William Shakespeare. And I say, suck my dick. Fuck you. Shakespeare, the problem is if you put Shakespeare on a shelf and you say it's the greatest of all time, nobody wants to fucking read it. That's where it stays. So fuck that idea. Those plays should be talked about. They should be done. Whatever. The problem with Shakespeare is so many people do it badly. And they think that, okay, in order to do it well, you have to be English, or you have to fucking... Being English helps, don't get me wrong. That you have to have like a beautiful fucking voice. And you don't. It's bullshit. My guide to that is Mark Rylance. You guys might know him from Bridge of Spies. He got the Oscar for that. Yay. You might know him from some of his stage work, but he's the greatest Shakespearean actor of our time, or I should say my parents' time. And it's because he doesn't sing-song it. You would think, I remember when I went to see him, it was so crazy. So this is what happened. As I'm looking at his autograph right now, I'm still so fucking, I loved that performance. I went to New York to go see Mark Rylance do 12th Night, and I went to see him do Richard III. Now here's why it's on my great moments. Something really fucking scary happened to me. I felt a lump. Sorry, God, you guys are gonna fucking hate this episode. I felt a lump on my testicles. I know, right? Ew. And it wasn't one of my testicles. I counted 3 things down there, and it was fucking scary. And this is what was really scary about it. I found out right after my grandpa Nick, my dad's dad, when he passed away. I was in a movie, and then I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's gone. I wasn't tremendously close with him. I mean, it was sad, but whatever. But anyways, I got this call when I was at an ArcLight movie. And then, I got the call. They told me there wasn't going to be a funeral, so don't come out. And then blah, 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 blah. I walked into the restroom, and then that's when I felt the lump. So the thing about it was I was supposed to go to New York that Friday because I was going to see Mark Rylance's shows that Saturday, okay? So this was on a Wednesday. Wednesday, I found this lump, and I went to a doctor like that day, and he was like, okay, I don't mean to alarm you, but you are prone right now, with your age, to testicular cancer, and I don't like that cyst. I want to get an ultrasound on it. So I had to go that day get an ultrasound. And I remember asking him, I was like, okay, so what happens if they find out it's cancer? And he says, well, we're going to want to get to work on it right away. And, he was talking about treatments. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm supposed to go to New York. And he was like, yeah, that would be canceled. And I was like, fuck. It sucks because it's like all that bad shit happened at once. So I go and I get the ultrasound, and that alone was just terrifying because you're in a fucking hospital gown, your balls are exposed, and it was a lady that did it, and she had to have a guy in there, and the guy was getting ready to go home, but then he had to stay because there has to be a guy in there, so I can't say that the lady touched me, whatever. And, the guy doesn't want to be in there. And it's just very cold. And, what's funny is as they're ultrasounding your balls, you're like looking at her face because they're not allowed to tell you what they see. And I'm looking at her face to see if like she mouths, oh my God, or, oh fuck, he's doomed, whatever the fuck. And she sees me looking and she's like, I'm pretty good at this. I'm not going to make any faces. So we both just kind of laughed. And I remember I laughed so hard that I started to cry. And it really hit home that I was like, dude, you could have cancer. This could be a big fucking defining moment. And so I put my clothes back on, and I told her, I know you can't tell me, but can you blink twice if it's cancer? And she just gave me a hug. It was really fucking crazy. She gave me a hug, and she said, whatever happens, it's going to be okay. And I fucking started crying right then. That's such a pussy, and I said, thank you. So I go home, and the doctor said he was pushing to get results. And so my whole trip to New York is really based on whether or not I have testicular cancer. So Friday comes around, and I call for the results, and they're like, yeah, the doctor wants to talk to you about the results. And my heart just sunk. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this story. And I was so scared, guys, in that moment. Holy fuck, I was scared. And doctor came on the phone, and he had said, he goes, well, he says, we did the test, and I have really good news, Eric. It's not cancerous. And I just, you know, it made me so happy. And you know, he told me, so go ahead and go to New York. He told me what it was, and we took some stuff so it would go away and all that good stuff. He gave me a prescription. So anyways, I make it to the airport, and my flight is getting canceled. There was something that happened, and my flight was getting canceled. And there was another flight that was leaving to New York. And it was so crazy because I was like, well, fuck, honestly, if I didn't get to go see Mark Rylance, I was okay at that moment. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just go to Colorado because my mom, she couldn't come out immediately. Maybe I'll just go see some family. That would be good too. Whatever. And so they were like, well, here's the thing, Mr. Rocha. There are 4 seats available on this other flight going to New York. If you want, I can put you on standby, but it's kind of a lottery about who's going to get there. And I just looked at her and I said, I'll try my luck on that. And I was really friendly to her, and I looked at the lady behind the desk, and I kind of told her what happened. And I just said, I go, if you can't get me on that flight, it's okay. And I said, I just want you to know, because a lot of people were giving that lady shit. And I said, I just want you to know it's not life or death to me. And she kind of looked at me, and she teared up too. And I swear to God, it sounds like I was doing this to like try to get on that flight. But she gave me a hug, and she's like, people have been so rude to me today. And I totally got it. Like, it was like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm telling you this, you poor lady. Like, those airlines, they're fucking, I've yelled plenty at airline people, but in that moment, I was just so happy to be fucking alive. And she gave me a hug, and then, wouldn't you know it, when they were asking, okay, we have 4 names for the flight, my name popped up. I was one of the 4 lucky bastards that got to go to New York. So I hopped on the flight, and I had a layover in Colorado. So that was lucky. I got to see my family. And, my mom hugged, and we cried a little bit, and off I was to New York. And I remember I was staying with a friend. Shout out to Tim Bell. Tim met me, at his place, grabbed my luggage, and he said, I finally got there. My tickets were for 8, and I got to his place at like 6:45, and he grabbed my luggage and he goes, just get back in the cab and go to the show. I want you to go. Because he knew what was going on with me too. And I packed my shit. He took all my gear. I went back in that cab, and I went to the show, got to the show, fucking ran inside, and I just sat in my seat. And again, guys, I just fucking cried. Because I went from knowing I might not be going because I might have cancer to sitting down, and that was the greatest performance of Shakespeare I'd ever seen. And I don't think it was just because of all the heavy shit behind it, but I remember just watching him. It was like Mark Rylance didn't even know his lines. But that's what the solid acting was you weren't like watching acting. It was pretty profound. So, you still good? Okay. We're going to go down the rabbit hole one more time, guys. I promise it won't be this dark anymore. That was number 3. Number 2, it was reading the eulogy. I had to write a eulogy because my uncle passed away. And it was a very strange thing because, the last conversation we had, I don't know if I ever told anybody this, it was me telling him I was gay. And this guy was a fucking powerhouse of a dude. Like, he was a CU linebacker. He played in 4 state championships in high school. He won 2. He was a 2-time state wrestling champion. He made me fucking tough. Like, I think I've said this before, but I fear no gay man. I really don't fear anybody, to be honest. Like, not to say that I can beat anybody. I'll get my ass kicked by plenty of people, but if it happens, it happens. The only 2 guys that I really fear, like, like the parental father figure fear, that's what I mean. They're gone. And my Uncle Barry was one of them. So in this last decade, he died. And my aunt told me, I think you should write the eulogy. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to write. Ever. How do you do a summation on somebody that you were fighting with, that you were happy with, that you loved, that you cared about, that that you really lived a life with? How do you do a summation on somebody like that? But with the help of my friends, I went to Northern California and I stayed with some friends, and I hammered out this eulogy and I read it, and it was very good, I can say. It was fitting. I think he would have been proud of it. And, the happy thing is this. The last conversation, I told him I was so scared. I was like, I'm gay. Because he had, by this time he had heard plenty of shit. And honestly, I didn't have the balls to tell him that's how much of a pussy I was. And he called me up and he had said, why the fuck do I have to hear this from other people? And I said, I know, I'm sorry. And he cried. I remember that. He was sobbing and he's like, do you not trust me, or what the fuck's going on? And I just told him, I was like, no, it's something that I didn't know how you'd react. I was scared. I love you, but I don't want you to look at me any different. God damn it. That's the fucking hard part sometimes about being gay is, you like somebody and you're friends with them, but you never know, man. You never fucking know. And you don't want to hurt them, but you don't want shit to be different either. I'm beating a dead horse. And he told me, he's like, you think I didn't know that guy you were living with in New York was your boyfriend? And my mouth dropped and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, really? And he goes, God damn it, I love you. I don't care what you are. And he goes, I love you. And I was like, well, I love you too, and you don't know what that means to me. That's thank you. And I remember he kind of paused and he was like, man, that faggot could barbecue. He knew barbecue. And I just started laughing. Cause yeah, my roommate was my roommate. my boyfriend, I still fucking do it. My ex-boyfriend loved to cook, and he was from South Carolina, so he really knew barbecue. But my uncle could not stop saying faggot. And he was like, man, that faggot knew barbecue though. And I laughed, and then he kind of stopped and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to say that anymore. And I was like, I don't care. You can say it anytime you want. I don't give a shit. Like, and to him, that word meant something different. It was derogatory sometimes the way he used it. But, it comes to another thing where you gotta let people change. That's the one thing I don't like about the LGBTQ community is you gotta give people a chance to change. You know, I grew up with a lot of the people that are not given a chance to, you know, take back what they say. You know, it was funny because I was listening to Eddie Murphy, or I was reading an interview where he was saying, you know, he doesn't like how he used the word faggot in Delirious. And okay, that's fine. You know, I wasn't tremendously hurt, but I have a different gay experience than everybody else. But I will tell you this much. I heard Eddie Murphy and I thought that was great. You know what? Hey, he doesn't like that he did that. He probably knows more gay people. And good on him. You know? So anyways, I smile because I know that was the last moment that I shared of the decade with my Uncle Barry. And when I wrote his eulogy, I didn't include that, but all there was love, and that made me really happy. So it also helped me get sober, you know, because drinking played a big part of that. And maybe that's the last great lesson that my Uncle Barry taught me was, you know, try doing it sober every once in a while. But I loved him, and he was a really great guy, and I lost him in that decade, but, you know, we got to express love for each other. So let that be a lesson. Make sure you tell the ones you love, you know, you'll love them. So, number 1. Boy, if you're still with me, here we go. This one's just a good old-fashioned fucking fun. Number 1, I got his name here, Mr. Joey Coco Diaz. You know, we talk about it all the time, and I believe it happened with Agostino Zoida too. He's a really great comic. He's got a terrific podcast called Homeschooled. Check it out. Really great. And I say Joey Diaz, and I also mean Lee Syatt. But it's really just comedy. You know, I think of this. The guys I started off with, Rob Banks, I'll say Luke Allen, Brock Walters, all the comics I've pretty much had on this show, from the Verzies to Robert Vertrees, Brendan Cooney. I have these terrific fucking friends. These really funny friends. I don't mean to get emotional about this. Fuck. And you know, it's funny because I've lost like father figures in this last decade, and you know, I look at all these guys like they're my brothers, you know, and they make me laugh when I'm upset, and they you know, they surprise me. You know, I heard Brendan Cooney do this terrific bit, and it kind of went viral, and it's this amazing bit on Star Wars. And you got to watch it. But it made me laugh so much. And I think because there's been times where Brendan Cooney's told me, he's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like an audience didn't respond the way he wanted them to. And it's funny because I look at him and he's like my friend. And it's like, dude, you don't know how fucking funny you are. Like you don't get to tell people how much they enrich your life. And it's funny because I'm friends with all these comics, and every day they make my fucking life great. And I'm just so happy, and I'm lucky. But when I talk about Joey, you know, Joey came in to Fourth Wall to help support Lee. And I will say this, Lee Syatt is a fucking badass. Lee Syatt, you know, here's a guy that is on a podcast that is world renowned. And I say world renowned because when I was on it, some fuckers from Ireland hit me up, and that was fun. But Lee wanted to do stand up, and Lee started going to open mics because he could have gotten shows, but he wanted to earn it. That's what's great about Lee. So he started coming into the mic that I was hosting, that my friends, a lot of whom I mentioned, were going to. And then Joey would go to support, and Joey would go up. Well, Joey saw me more than a few times, and he saw me have some pretty decent sets. And he pulled me aside one day, and he said, I think you're really funny. I want to throw you a couple gigs. And from that point, we've been friends. He's told me things, he's mentored me. I've gotten hugs from that guy. And he just showed me not only a good way to do it, but like he taught me how to fucking tip people. Like the waitresses that help us in the green room backstage. He's great to everybody. And this is the thing. He's hardcore, but I will tell you this. That dude's heart is as big as anybody's. Joey loves as hard as he fucking does comedy. He's all in. And when somebody like that takes a shine to you, it's powerful. So, my number one moment was when Joey, found me in the open mics and said, hey, I want to throw you a couple gigs. And that was something that I've learned a tremendous amount from. So, we're going to end it with 3 things I learned this year. Number 3, you can't ask permission to be funny. Joey taught me that. I bombed the gig at Irvine, and it was funny because like the first show that my mother came to see, and I was just very timid, and another guy I loved is George Perez. George came on right after me, and he fucking he's another guy that'll show you how it's done. But when I left, that guy gave me a big old hug, and whenever I see George Perez, it's always hugs. And, that was another guy I was afraid would find out, I'm gay. I wonder how he feels about it. And he is fucking hilarious. Doesn't give a shit. That dude's so secure in himself, masculinity-wise and comedy-wise. He's fucking amazing. But anyways, that's one thing Joey taught me was you can't ask permission to be funny. You've just got to go out there, and you've got to show him this is me and this is why I'm funny. And I think the turning point for me was in Bakersfield. He made me go to Bakersfield with him. It was me and Agostino. And we had a fun show. It was a lot of fun. And I feel like I learned that lesson. But I wouldn't have learned that were it not for Joey. So, yeah, that guy's a big part of my life. And I love him. So, number 2. Friends really are the family you choose. I know that's pretty pretentious and it's cliche, but it is. The friends I've made are just, and I've talked about already, from even people that aren't comics. Like I've friends named Jordan Bowers and another guy named Scott Murphy. He's a good guy. These guys they help me look at shit differently. They'll sit with me. We'll have lunch and we'll have deep talks. And, I don't have any family here in California. The closest thing I have it's my friends Rob, Eleni, and Elon. And, I spend Thanksgiving with them. I spend a lot of holidays with them, and that's the closest thing I have to family. And it's who you pick to be around. And when I look at them, it's just all of my friends. It's just, goddamn, I'm lucky. Really, really lucky. All right. In closing, the number 1 is tomorrow really isn't promised. You you lose people along the way. Who knows how long any of us got. But because of that, I've always lived this way. My dad wasn't around, poor me, whatever. And then, certain people of my grandpa, my Uncle Barry, they've died far too young. But all of them know they knew how I felt about them. And it's funny because I'm an emotional fuck. I'm a moody fuck too, but I'm an emotional fuck. And that's always been really important to me, is that I want my friends knowing how much I love them and how much I cared about them. And that's powerful. And that's something that I hope, by the time it's time to sell my farm, that people know that is how much I love them. So that's it from me, guys. I hope you have a fantastic 2020. I'm about to take another shot of fucking Dayquil. Who knows? Maybe I'll do Dayquil and I'll do NyQuil. Let's see what happens, huh? Regardless, I love you guys, and I wish you so much happiness and so much laughter in the new year, in this new decade. Let's make it a good one. And to all the people in my life, I love you. If you owe me money, I'm gonna want it. I love you, but I'll send you in the grave. Don't fucking test me, bitch. God, I really know how to ruin an ending.
I don't know no better, so let's blame the weather. 'Cause I got no care when I hit my groove. 'Cause I got no care